welcome to week 6 in the NFL. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about FantasyHub.com. Some great contests for charity, some great contests to help you make money, and now a great contest because of charity. As you can see here, Fantasy Hub has raised over $100,000 for charity, so big time milestone. And because of that milestone, they've announced a $10 buy-in, $100,000 prize pool contest for next weekend. First place gets $10,000 in this one, and I know I'll be going after this one. It's exciting to get to that milestone, and it's exciting to take part in this big contest. So also, because of this, you'll see a lot of interesting contests. You're looking at athlete leagues here. This one listed as the top, obviously the featured contest, but these are the leagues that have helped raise a lot of money for charity. Albert Pujols, Greg Jennings, Isaac Bruce, Kurt Warner. These are the ones that have helped make this happen. So while you're joining the big contest for next week, make sure you join these other contests as well. Help out some great causes and continue to help Fantasy Hub raise even more money to help out many, many good charities across the board. All right, now starting off, I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite plays for this upcoming week. Just as an example, just going in the $4,500 rush, which, by the way, $25 buy-in, $4,500 in prizes. So this is a contest you want to get yourself in as well. I'm going to start off at quarterback, and if you're following the NFL last year, the year before, this year, anytime in the last 10 years, you know about this guy named Tom Brady. He's the most expensive quarterback this week, but rightfully so. We've only got 3 games with totals over 44, 44 and a half, depending on where you look. And this one has a huge total, well over 50 points. And if you believe in narratives, this is Tom Brady against the Colts, who not only has Tom Brady dominated the Colts. I mean, the Patriots have dominated them on the ground, special teams, everything. This is the game that stemmed the suspension, which has now since been vacated and overruled. But Tom Brady, coincidentally, right after his 4th game, was going to be coming back off his suspension for this game. But Tom Brady already in the top 3 in passing yards and touchdown passes, and he's already had his bye week. So a great matchup for Tom Brady. He's been between 22 and 29 fantasy points each week. So if I'm paying up, Tom Brady's my number one option. A couple other guys I wrote up here in the article. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, you certainly don't need to know a whole lot about that matchup. It's a San Diego defense that has not been very good. They've been below average. And one of the worst overall defenses as graded by Football Outsiders and Pro Football Focus. So certainly a great spot there. Other guys to consider. I'm looking at a value play. I always highlight a value play as well. There's one guy at minimum salary I was going to highlight, but I could not look past Andy Dalton at $5,600. And as many of you might know, I am a Bengals fan. This is not a homer play. This is the Buffalo Bills with the 9th worst passing defense in all of football. Andy Dalton has been tremendous this year, and you get him at a $2,300 difference from Tom Brady. And Andy Dalton with 11 touchdown passes through 5 games. He's been tremendous, and this is also a very stout Buffalo run defense. 3rd best as far as yards allowed per game in the entire NFL. So you're going to beat this team. You're going to beat them through the air. Andy Dalton has excelled through the air with Tyler Eifert and Marvin Jones now healthy to add to the rest of all his weapons. A.J. Green, Mohamed Sanu. Giovanni Bernard has emerged as a great threat in the passing game as well. So this is a great spot for Andy Dalton. He's $600 more than the minimum. So absolutely love him. But there's the one guy I mentioned earlier that I want to highlight at $5,000. You just go ahead and keep on scrolling and keep on scrolling. Brian Hoyer, $5,000, facing off against a Jacksonville team that's allowing the 2nd most points per game of any team in football. They look lost. Hoyer has a great rapport with DeAndre Hopkins. We'll get to him here in a minute. But if you're not paying up for a guy like Brady, I love Dalton, but I also like Brian Hoyer. So I think these guys provide you with enough value that you can play them and still fit a ton of other big names in. But there really aren't a whole lot of big names you feel like you need to fit into your lineups this week. So most players you want to get, you'll be able to get, but I don't mind going with some of these cheaper options because, really the only thing going against Brady is game flow. They won the last game against the Colts by 38 points in the AFC Championship game. So it's certainly possible that game gets out of hand, and we see the Patriots do what they often do when they're up big, and that's run the football. So moving over here to running back, I usually highlight one top play, the one guy I'm locking on my lineups, and that guy's usually Le'Veon Bell or Jamal Charles. Obviously, Charles now out with a torn ACL once again, unfortunately. And Le'Veon Bell, though, with a pretty tough matchup this week against a stout Arizona rushing defense, I should say. Tough front 7. He is obviously a big factor in the passing game as well. But when you consider his price difference over guys like Adrian Peterson and Matt Forte, both of whom are in very good matchups. I don't mind pivoting down to them. Peterson against a Chiefs defense that was the strength of their team last year, all of a sudden one of the worst in football. He's locked into a ton of touches. You've got to like that at $1,000 less. Like I said, if you love Bell, if you want Bell, you can certainly afford him this week. But then right below him, you got two other great guys there. You got Matt Forte at $7,000 against a Detroit defense that's just been, I mean, it's been an embarrassment on all sides of the ball for them. And, you know, when you consider now, we saw on Thursday, apparently Martellus Bennett was injured in practice, now listed as questionable, not practicing on Friday. So if he sits out, it's possible Alshon Jeffrey's still sitting out. It's possible Eddie Royal sits out. Matt Forte already the focal point of this offense. He's going to see a ton of looks in a good matchup. PPR format, of course, on FantasyHub. So you could definitely see a monster floor and ceiling for Matt Forte. And at $100 less, Aaron Foster, I don't mind him at Jacksonville either. I'll have a lot of shares at DeAndre Hopkins as well. So I'm not sure how much I want to have both of those guys in together. But certainly a great spot for both of them. Now you're looking at some cheaper guys here. And these are going to be contingent on some injury concerns. Obviously, the first one here is going to be Charkandrick West. I'm not going to make you scroll all the way down for that one. But he's $3,900. He's going to be filling in for Jamal Charles. And he is going to be in somewhat of a workload split with teammate Niall Davis, who was originally Jamal Charles' backup the last few years. But Andy Reid has come out and said that Charkandrick West's style, his skill set, most closely resembles Jamal Charles. So Charkandrick West is the guy that's going to get the looks in the passing game. And that's what you want here from an offense that, you know, has struggled to protect the quarterback. Short passes are the name of the game with them. You saw it with Jamal Charles all year long. So you figure even if West doesn't have much success in the running game against Minnesota, who's actually been pretty stout against the run since that first week against Carl's High where they really struggled, you want the guy that's going to be getting looks out of the backfield, and that's West. And the other guy that's a great value play, assuming that Justin Forsett sits out, he's listed as questionable right now, hasn't been practicing, but Javorius Allen, Buck Allen, if you will, against San Francisco. And San Francisco, as you've seen this year, their secondary's been terrible. Their front seven hasn't been much better. And he's a good runner. I mean, this is a guy who's only seen 26 carries, but he's averaged nearly 5 yards a carry. Certainly a very small sample size there. But at $4,200, if he's the main guy, we've already got Lorenzo Taliaferro on the IR. So he will be the guy if Justin Forsett can't go. And also, looks like Steve Smith now on the wrong side of questionable. He was hoping to come back, practice this week. Doesn't look likely. So this is a team that may just rely on the run quite a bit once again because they don't have a whole lot of weapons in the passing game. So Javorius Allen, another guy I'm definitely looking at there. Moving over now to wide receiver. And Odell Beckham would be my top play against the Philly defense and specifically against Byron Maxwell, but has not practiced yet this week. It's now Friday afternoon, and that does not bode well for his status, and especially when you consider that he is playing on Monday night. So if you lock in the most expensive player at any position into your lineup and you can't play him on Monday night, then that's going to be a big problem for you. So maybe if you're making a ton of lineups, you throw him in one just in case, but it looks like he's on the wrong side of questionable. Ruben Randall banged up as well, so a dream matchup for the Giants and Eli Manning, kind of going downhill a little bit here, and so that's an avoid for me. But for me, my top option is easily going to be DeAndre Hopkins at $7,600. He's leading the league in targets. He's leading the league in receiving yards per game. He was coming into this week before Julio Jones already played on Thursday night. He was leading the league in receiving yardage as well. So Brian Hoyer loves to force feed the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. I'm making that pairing all over the place. Hopkins is going to be in a ton of my lineups there. Other guys you can consider, of course, you love Julian Edelman, his volume passing against the Colts. If the Colts keep this one close, Edelman could have a huge game. You got A.J. Green at $7,400 against Buffalo is an interesting play as well. Other guys I highlighted, though, you've got Brandon Marshall and Larry Fitzgerald at decent prices. But then my value play here is one who's picking on a really bad secondary in Baltimore, and that's Anquan Bolden at $4,100. This is a guy who has been an elite target in the past. Last week, 8 of his 12 targets for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Colin Kaepernick and this offense finally looked like an NFL offense last week. And it's a tougher matchup, really, against the Giants. The Giants aren't a great defense, but Baltimore's been a horrible defense, especially their secondary. And, I mean, he's the favorite target for Colin Kaepernick. And it's not like that Baltimore has any one player that can really take him out of this game. So I love Anquan Bolden as a value play this week. And then if you're tired of hearing about Rob Gronkowski, this is not the place for you. Moving over to tight ends, Rob Gronkowski is your top option. He hasn't posted enormous numbers against the Colts, but he does have 4 touchdowns and over 230 yards in his last 4 games against them. Last 3 games against them. A lot of that came in one game. He didn't do a whole lot in the playoff game, but that's, like I said, that was a 38-point game, and he didn't need to do a whole lot in that game for them to be successful. So if this game stays close, Gronk has an enormous ceiling. Another guy I really like is Greg Olsen. Right behind him, we've seen his upside, had a huge game a few weeks ago against New Orleans, now facing a Seahawks team that's coming off a bad performance against Tyler Eifert as the tight end for the Bengals, who scored 2 touchdowns. They've given up 4 touchdowns to tight ends already, and they're ranked 30th in the league, according to Football Outsiders, against the tight end. And Greg Olsen, the number 1 weapon for Cam Newton that isn't his own legs. So you got to love Greg Olsen here in this matchup. If you're looking for cheaper guys, Antonio Gates against Green Bay came right back in and picked up where he left off, 9 for 92 and 2 touchdowns in his return from suspension. And then Gary Barnidge. This is picking on the toughest defense in the league in Denver. I love the Denver defense, but their one weakness is the tight end position, and that's really the only strength of this offense for the Browns over the last couple weeks. Barnidge leads all tight ends in receptions over the last 3 weeks, so I'll be looking at him. And your very, very cheap play, Larry Donnell's only $3,000. Mentioned that Odell Beckham and Ruben Randle may end up sitting out. He's going to see a ton of volume just by default there in a great matchup against Philly, so I'm a big fan there. Next up, I'm going to show you how to use some of these plays to build optimized lineups on dailyfantasycafe.com. So obviously you're going to come over here, Daily Fantasy Cafe, click on Tools, Lineup Optimizer. I've already done that. Of course, click Fantasy Hub here. Then you're going to scroll down here, and you're going to type in your players. So first off, I'm going to try to get a stacked lineup. So I'm going to put in Andy Dalton. I'm going to click Lock so that he's locked into my lineup. And then next up, I'm going to pair him with A.J. Green, because you want to pair your quarterback with a wide receiver a lot of times there. And I'm going to go ahead and get myself DeAndre Hopkins as well. And then I'm going to show you how to use the filters here also, so you can determine exactly what you want to do and utilize all of the features that you can here. Obviously, this game is bolted out because Thursday game already happened. You want the Sunday, Monday slate, the main time. And if you have maybe all but 1 or 2 slots filled up, you can filter by salary here. Say you have $6,200 left, just say, hey, look, I want a guy that's exactly 62 because I know with one of these slots I'm considering 2 players that are 7,000, for instance. You can do that. Filter by team total here, 20, 25, 30. Obviously, not very many teams are going to have a 30-point team total there. And if you want to take out entire games, maybe you just don't like matchups, you've got 2 good defenses, you can just click the game, or even an individual team, take those out. Next up, you want to look at advanced options here. GPP or cash games. I'm going GPP with this one. I want big time upside. You want to exclude your defenses playing offensive players. The last thing you want is a touchdown scored that helps your offensive player and takes points for your defense. That's not going to do you any good in any tournaments. You could take away running back and quarterback on the same team. This isn't always necessary, but I'm going to leave it on here this time. Maximum number of players per team in each lineup. I'm going to go with 2 here. Or you can just turn it off because you're not often going to see more than 2. Obviously, teams like the Patriots, Packers, with big-time team totals, you could see more than that. So for the sake of this, I'm going to leave it at 2. I already have 2 with Green and Dalton. So if I try to generate lineups now, it's going to tell me, no, you can't do that. You already have an invalid lineup. Lock a flex position. If you know you want a wide receiver, you can lock that in, tight end, running back, things like that. Individual player exposure, what you could do with that, if you turn that on, you see down here, A.J. Green, say I'm making 10 lineups and I want him in 8 of them, I'll highlight that and I'll turn that into 80% there. Elsewhere, you can make stacks and import those as well. You can upload your own projections. Lots of great things that you could do here with this model. So I'm going to lock those players in and generate lineups. I'm going to generate 10 lineups here, try to give you an idea of what all lineups you can get, some different ideas, maybe some players you weren't thinking of that are nice values. So first one here, Andy Dalton, Charkandrick West was the guy I mentioned. You got Dion Lewis against Indy. Same receivers that I locked there. Greg Olsen. Allen Hurns is nice and cheap at under 5K. Larry Fitzgerald. And then you get the Jets against turnover-prone Washington. So that's a nice lineup there. This one over here basically swaps out Donnell and Donnell in for Olsen, Forte in for Dion Lewis. And then instead of Allen Hurns, you're moving in Dion Lewis down here into the flex. So there's a lot of different things you can do here. Obviously, you've got the same quarterback here because I locked the quarterback. You can do a whole lot of different things. It'll give you different ideas what to mix in. You got some Titans, some Seahawks defense down here. Martellus Bennett, obviously questionable, so make sure you check that. If he ends up being out, he'll be taken out, but you can individually take out players that you don't want either. and then you just go ahead and copy and paste these. It gives you projected points and value and everything like that. So hopefully this helped you out with some great plays for week 6 and some ideas of how to build lineups. So good luck this week, and I'll see you next week.